What's going on, everybody? Gentleman94 here. Welcome back to Ben Builds. Today, guys, we are back on the Tiffy, and we're going to jump right back in here with the wing walks. I want to go ahead and mask off these wing walk areas using my pre-cut Edward masks. We're going to hopefully finish off all the major painting today. Last episode, we went ahead and pre-shaded everything. We hit the lighter, like pale blue color here on the underside of the wings. We also marked up the black lines, the identification bands, and we airbrushed those as well. We also hit these flat black areas here around the wing roots, and I'm going to go ahead and use these really awesome Edward pre-cut masks, and we're just going to stick these down and protect this area, and I'm going to start overcoating it with paint. We're going to use a dark gray, also by Vallejo, and we're going to come back in. We're going to hopefully freehand the camo pattern with my airbrush for the dark green. Now, I haven't built a camoed aircraft in a while, so I might be a bit rusty, but I really enjoy using the airbrush and being a little bit creative and a little bit artistic with it. So I'm going to try to freehand that green camo. Hopefully it turns out. I don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to go with it and see what we can do. Also, I'm going to go ahead and off camera, I'm going to mix up just some regular old Vallejo paint with the dark gray, and I'm going to drop in a little bit of thinner, probably about 4 parts thinner to 1 part paint. We're going to hit that, come on back, and I'll show you what I come up with. All right, everybody, so here we are. The aircraft has been painted with the Vallejo dark gray, and it looks decent enough. I tried to just basically hit it so that the panel lines would show through, and I think there are certain areas where that works. I do think it's a bit dark, though. So what I've done is I've taken a little bit of the dark gray, and I've actually added a bit of white. And I'm going to go ahead and mix that up a bit, drop some more thinner in there, and I'm going to highlight the center of each panel just with a little bit of this lightened gray color. Then that should hopefully help in overall, weathering of it, and it should look pretty cool. So I've got everything kind of mixed up. I've done a little bit of work here, and as you can hopefully tell, there's a nice contrast with the panel line, the darker gray around that, and then the lighter gray in the center. Typically, I don't really worry too much about, coming in and highlighting the center of the panels, but I want to try that this time around. So I think it looks pretty decent. So I'm going to go ahead and cover the whole aircraft and go through each panel and really kind of lighten it up a little bit. Do that off camera, and I'll show you what I got. All right, everybody, with the dark gray done, looking pretty good, we're going to jump in with this Vallejo dark green. And I'm going to go ahead and get this all set up. I've got some pre-mixed here, ready to rock. We're going to dump it in the airbrush, and we're going to attempt to freehand some camo patterns. All right, everybody, I kind of forgot how hard this was. I haven't done this in a while, but it's so far coming along. It's not going to be 100% perfect, though. I can already, tell you it's not going to be 100% accurate, but I think there's enough artistic license here that I can kind of play with it and have fun and still have my own creativity kind of come through in the camo patterns. So I'm working very slowly here, using a little bit of paint, a little bit of air, really close, drawing in those lines and getting everything kind of traced out. So you can see here I'm working on this top section, and I've come through, and I have to make a little bit of a course correction right here. But we're just tracing around. This is going to be the outline of the camo pattern. We're going to fill in the center section of that. We're also going to have to paint the yellow and the yellow identification marks and the wing roots and all that good stuff. But I wanted to get this more or less traced in, and it's coming down a little bit here and come across that aileron. Yep. Now, I will say that this is very tedious. I haven't really airbrushed camo pattern in a while. I think the last aircraft I built that had a camo pattern was probably, the Thunder Chief, to be honest, my F-105. Before that, I think it was a Russian aircraft. It might have been the LA-5 or the Lag-3, one of those two. Most of the time, it's just a pretty simple monotone color, but camo is always awesome, and it's a lot of fun to paint, but maybe I should have just used some templates. I don't know. The green is a bit light right now. I might want to come back and maybe darken the edges a bit, and then come back through and hit that lightened green even more in the center of the panels to give it a little bit of a weathered look. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to continue moving along, filling in the areas, and let me go ahead and show you what I have. All right, everybody, so here we are. This is my basic pattern that I have airbrushed here by hand on my Tiffy. This is decent enough. I think the color is a little light, but I might be able to darken it up a little bit when I hit it with a gloss coat. Typically, when I shoot an airplane with, or even a tank for that matter, with gloss coat, like a Future, it tends to darken all the paint. So I'm going to leave it like this. I'm going to maybe do a little bit of highlight, a little bit of shading, but I want to try to go ahead and work on the yellow. All right, so I'm going to be using the same technique as I used on the underside with the black lines. I have my tape that's 6 millimeters, this Dymo tape. I'm going to go ahead and use a 10 mil tape on each side of that, and we're going to go ahead and have that line ready to go. So just put a little bit of tape down on the other end of this. Make sure it fits, make sure it's about equal. Yeah, that's pretty decent. All right, let's go ahead and cut this tape right here with my X-Acto knife. So now we have to do a little bit of fine adjustment. I want to make sure this is looking great. Because remember, this is going to be very visible. So I don't want it to be crooked or off center. I want it to be really nice and clean and pretty vertical if I can do it. That looks about right. So let's go ahead and do the other side and then we'll go ahead and get to paint. All right, guys, so we are back and I have mixed up just some basic Tamiya flat yellow paint. I've got everything set up and we're just airbrushing in this area. I've also masked off the front leading edge, the yellow stripe. I want to do that at the same time. So I've got everything masked off. I've got enough tape to go ahead and watch out for overspray. You really got to be careful with your overspray. But I'm just taking it nice and slow. Covered up enough of the aircraft for overspray because you got to be real careful with overspray. I've also taped off the front sections for the leading edge yellow bands. I wanted to get those done at the same time. And I think this is coming along. I'm using some plain old flat Tamiya yellow, using a little bit of rubbing alcohol, probably 2 to 1. I really think this is covering nicely. All right, here we go. So the yellow is done. You can see I've removed one wing mask and it's looking decent. I've got a little bit of work to do on this gun port, but that's okay. I like the yellow. It looks clean. It looks crisp. There we go. That's what we have come up with. So we've got the yellow bands. We've got the yellow leading edge wing stripes. I think this looks really cool. I have to admit, I like this, but there's a couple errors I want to go ahead and correct. Back here, this line is a little bit too high. On the instructions, it shows it much lower. So I want to go ahead and mask off, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to reshoot this area with some of the green and then some of that darker gray. And the other side as well. I just, for some reason, I taped it way too high. So I want to go ahead and lower that and fix that up. So that should be easy enough to do, though. Shouldn't be too bad. All right, so I'm going to move on to the white nose. That's going to be my next step. So to do that, I'm going to need to take some tape. I have a strip of Tamiya tape laid out here, and I'm actually going to cut a couple of very thin lines. So I'm just using this paint stick as a straight edge. I really need to find my metal ruler. I don't know where I put it. We're going to pull one of these strips off, and we're just going to start positioning this under the nose. And I'm going to be real careful with this. I want it to be nice and even, nice and straight. So working here, we've been able to line it up. I think it looks pretty decent. So I'm going to take it nice and slow, and we're just going to work ourselves right around that nose. And I'm working very carefully here. I don't want to have this be crooked or off center. I want everything lined up and squared because, again, this is going to be a very prominent part of the aircraft. You're really, really going to see this white nose. It's going to stand out like a sore thumb. Also with the yellow lines as well. All right, so now that I have the initial line kind of set up with my thinner Tamiya tape, I'm going to take a thick piece of tape and I'm going to start working backwards from that. And I'm going to go ahead and cover the areas that I definitely don't want to get paint on. So I'm going to use some flat white, nothing fancy, and we're going to just start and we're going to shoot from the cockpit towards the nose of the airplane. That way I also further minimize the amount of overspray. I could be even more careful and start taping more of the wings and more of the fuselage, but I'm kind of lazy, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the best I can. And again, nice, smooth, easy strokes. I like how this is turning out. This is really, really looking the part. And we're going to have to paint the inside of that air intake as well. I'm not sure how to weather white, though. I've never had to weather anything that was white before. So this should be interesting to find out. I know I'm going to have some oil streaks. I'm going to have some just basic, maybe some chips or something from taking off from kind of, rocky runways, something like that. I'm going to have to figure out how exactly to weather the white. That's going to be tough because weathering is a bit of a challenge for me still. So the white is finished. I pulled off the masks and you can see, yeah, I think this looks the part. I'm going to have to come back and paint the inside of the intake itself because, well, it got a little overspray in there, but that's okay. I hadn't really painted it with anything yet anyway. All right, everybody. So we're going to move on to the last section, which is the sky band that sits at the back of the tail, and it's right about here. So we're going to use this Tamiya sky, but I'm needing to tone it down a little bit. So I've got some white here and I've got the sky. So we're going to mix the two together. I actually got the idea from Martin Lamont there, the host of the Spiffy Tiffy Buddy Build. So got my lightened sky here. I used, maybe 3 or 4 drops of white in the sky, and I just added maybe about 6 or 7 drops total. And I was able to get it looking a little less green. So we're going to throw it in the airbrush, lay it on the model, see what happens. Again, nice and easy strokes, a lot like I painted the white. I've got the tape on there for overspray. Let's get it done. Okay, it is all painted up. I used my same technique as before. Thin line to go ahead and get the basic band, and then thicker tape around there to go ahead and watch for overspray. All right, here we are. Look at that. I like the sky color, a little bit of white. Awesome idea, Martin. About 6 or 7 drops of white, and I think it looks great. I'm super happy about this. The camouflage is basically done. The white is done. The yellow bands are finished. The sky band is also finished. So now all we have to do is come back, do a little bit of detail painting here and there. We got to mount the canopy. We got to fix up that door. We got to hit that propeller, get that ready to go. We are moving right along. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you back here next time on the Spiffy Tiffy Buddy Build here on Ben Builds, episode number 9. Thanks so much. See you soon.